we're going to start on the right and then work our way back this way. So, the furthest right question, not politically, I mean. Yes. Just shout your name out and who you are.
John Gagan, Planning Magazine. Just wanted to ask Simon what his thoughts were on the Labour Party's New Towns proposals announced in the autumn, particularly their idea for development corporations to deliver new towns.
Well, one of the things I think is very important about this prize is that it stays a million miles away from politics. So I'm not going to comment on any political party's proposals, other than to say I think any party that is proposing anything to break the deadlock in the housing market is doing a good thing, and I'm hoping that all three parties will have some proposals for the housing market. Next question. Yeah. At the front, right at the front, please.
David Burbank, Design for Homes. I was interested in the comments about Cambridge, and Cambridge is the place that's done everything in the last 15 years. I mean, it has an area which is basically a new settlement of about 3,000 homes called Cambourne. It's redeveloped the city centre all around the railway station. It's built, I don't know how many flats already, but it's certainly in that, more than 1,000. And it's rejoined its greenbelt. It took 300 acres out of the greenbelt in 2002. And the housing that's been built there is the best in the country. But I'm really asking the judges, if you go and see the difference between something like Cambourne, the new settlement, and the edge of town urban extension with sustainable transport that's called Clay Farm or Trumpeton Meadows, which I'm a bit of a life on in Cambridge. One is so obviously better than the other. Do you not feel that extending into the greenbelt is a better solution than a totally standalone solution?
Trevor, why don't you?
Well, I take the point, and it's a good question, but there are exceptions to what is a generality, and that is that town extensions are almost universally very unpopular indeed. And all over the country, we've seen housing estates added on to towns as housing extensions, and not in a comprehensive way which has been acceptable to local people. One of the criteria for judging the entries is that it has to be a proposition which is likely to find favour with the location in which it's planned, and support from local people affected. So that's one of the reasons I think that we would like to see entries that don't necessarily require the planning system to deliver the answer.
Brett Amfit from the Builders Merchants Federation. I declare a personal interest because half of my family in the 60s moved out of London to Crawley, a new town in West Sussex, on the promise of blue and white collar jobs at the airport, and they're still there, or they're coming up for retirement. So I think the answer is possibly go and talk to Boris, find out where his airport is, and as I just won the prize, could I have my cheque?
No.
My question is about political groupthink. I worry about this a lot because if all the party leaders, and again referred to by the journalist's question a moment ago, if all the party leaders are advocating, indeed squabbling over who thought of it first, I begin to worry when politicians agree like that. Can the judges tell me what their top tip would be to decouple from this argument? Because don't forget, in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, there are district council elections. How do we decouple the party political squabble to an audience of professionals, and in my case, a humble builder's merchant, to get the homes built to a good standard, district heating, whatever you want to do? What is your top tip to get the political heat out of this thing?
I'll have a go at that. I think one of the huge issues in our political system is that all of the voice in the development debate within planning and all forms of development is entirely from those people who live there now. The voice of the people who want to live there is entirely silent. So if you need a property, if you want to live in a property where your kids might want a property, then you don't get a voice. We spent 3 weeks with a double-decker bus on a large site we're developing in Hertfordshire, and it had a big sign on the outside, where are your kids going to live in 20 years? That generated so much debate, and we've got to really try to transform the debate in this country towards answering that question. Where are your kids going to live? Where are you going to sort of secure the future of your families? Because it's not going to be by not building anything, anywhere, anyone, anyhow. So that's the principal issue. I see some early signs that the parties are starting to realise that that's the new fertile ground. And they're starting to listen to social networking, they're starting to listen to outfits like Priced Out, who are starting to articulate a real anger from young people about where's theirs, frankly. So that would be my solution to that, is to really engage with younger people, with people who need properties, using social media and all the other new skills and techniques that we have, and mobilise the voice of the people who want to live somewhere to equalise the voice of the people who don't want them anywhere near them.
Can I just add to that, Simon, that this competition is very timely. You will, I know, as an audience, have noticed that all three political parties have voiced some sort of support for the notion of new cities. And that's very important indeed. And what we hope will come out of this competition are ideas that are significant, achievable, and visionary, so that politicians will have not invented them, but can support the idea of establishing new cities to solve many of the problems that exist in the housing market and in some of our existing cities. So it's a huge opportunity to actually contribute to a political debate which has not really yet started. And it needs to be started from an informed position by people who understand the issue.
Thank you, John. Yes, sir.
Nicholas Arbuthnot, architect and developer. Howard was coming up with a model of a new concept of Garden City. He addressed how it should be done, not where necessarily it should be done. You're asking us, can you just clarify, you're asking us to decide where and how it should be done, or just the first?
Okay, I'll take that one if it's all right with you. The first thing is that the entries do not have to have a location associated with them. They can have a region or an area, and you know that may be advisable to stop the protest group instantly forming outside your offices. But on the other hand, what the judges will need to be convinced of, in addition to the architectural infrastructure, they will need to be convinced of the economics. The economics are going to be much more persuasive, and the politics are going to be much more persuasive in terms of what local people actually think, if entries have a name associated with them. So we're not insisting on it, and we're not precluding the fact that in the first round people may not have a location, and in the second they can then nominate one, but there's no doubt that naming a location will add to the credibility and the persuadability of your arguments.
Sorry, I lost the microphone, but it can be named but not actually designed to that location.
Yes, yeah, you can say we want to put it in this rough area. I won't name one for fear of instantly causing riots.
Simon, can I just say a word on the how? I feel quite peculiar in the room today as an engineer and a major project person rather than an architect or a developer, but the how is something I'm particularly interested in. I think you have to bring major project type thinking to this. It's about creating somewhere where people want to have a really good life, not just a house to live in. And that needs the right infrastructure, it needs connectivity, it needs transitioning planning. All of that needs to be thought about holistically and systemically. So I really would encourage everybody to put their major project hats on, learn lessons from major projects which have gone very, very well recently, and bring that thinking to the how side of the question, please.
Hello, Charles Campion from John Thompson and Partners. Thinking about the international reach of the initial concept, because it's gone global in the last 100 years, it seems to me that the generic approach would be best for the first phase, and then go a little bit more specific for the second phase. Could you just answer or confirm whether what you're thinking is in relation to the second phase, so it can inform our approach to the first of the competition, that is?
Trevor.
I think the first phase will be considered by the judges to have the seeds of a more considered and thorough follow-up in the last stage of the 5 entries. And we're looking for originality, we're looking for a new idea, recognising, I think something that Simon said earlier, that we are constrained by existing organisational rules about how planning and development works. We're interested to see thinking that goes beyond the rules that we're all used to. We recognise that to make this work for our generation, we have to think of originality, we have to think of our own solution to the problem, albeit informed by whatever Lisa Howard came up with, but we are now in a new generation, a new century, and we need to have original thinking which perhaps puts to one side the rigorous formula in which we're all used to working. So it's time for a radical change, and that's what we're looking for in the first round of submissions.
Sorry, the lady just next to you.
Thank you, Heather Pugh, David Mock Associates. It's a question for the well, I was going to ask the panel, but I'll ask the judges as well. There's considerable media interest in the prize already, and many of us in the room will remember the Eco-Towns process. I just wanted to ask what might be different this time round. Had the panel and the prize judges thought about how you might harness the positivity coming out of all this thinking, rather than letting the negativity, once you put a blob on a plan, take over in terms of effectively derailing the whole process?
Mark, is there something you'd like to comment on? I don't know if anyone... I know you've put some thought into this already. This is like post-prize publicity.
I mean, I'll have a go. We haven't given a great deal of thought, and this is one of the questions I need to ask Simon in the coming weeks. Once we get to, so the timeline I will come on to in a minute, but once we get to mid-September, we are going to publish, obviously, a winning entry. There will be some publicity around that. We'll have published the shortlisted entries as well. There is an open question what to do with that. My contract ends in mid-September, so that is another conversation that I need to have with Simon. But remember that what's going on in the political sphere is that that's immediately before the party conference season. The parties are all thinking very carefully now about what's going to go into their 2015 manifestos. We will have to see what they do with our material. We'll offer it to all comers. As Simon said, this is not a political process. We're not interested in party political manoeuvring. We're just here to generate intellectual capital and a debate. So we'll give that material to anyone who wants it, including Michael Lyons of the Labour Party, of course.
Okay, sorry, yes, sir.
Paul Sandberg. Next month, I'm giving a talk to a village about garden cities. And one of the questions you can answer is, what sort of scale is the competition expected? For instance, is there opportunity to look at garden villages or towns, suburbs or satellites, which were mentioned in Ebenezer Howard's original Garden City book? And also, as an architect, somebody who's more used to sort of bricks and design, what's the expectation over the sort of human revenue ideas about trust, about enterprise, about free spirit, about localism?
This is a competition to come up with the best means of achieving a garden city. And the city, to my mind, has to have a reasonable population which would not be compatible with a small town or a village. But having said that, many of our best cities, of course, are made up of neighbourhoods. And so some of the thinking which you might attribute to village or small town communities are attributed to neighbourhoods, but with the greater benefit, we hope, that suggestions will be made about how neighbourhoods can integrate into a city environment with all the benefits that a city brings. Remember always that one of the reasons for this competition is to find a solution, only one of the reasons, but to find a solution to the housing crisis that we are facing. And of course, that means development on a substantial scale, if it means anything at all.
What, just the lady there? We've only got time for 2 more questions after this, and then strict instructions finished.
Juliet Sally from the Society of Garden Designers. With the increasing body of research to demonstrate the importance of green space in our urban spaces, are the judges interested in the candidates incorporating economic arguments for gardens and green spaces in reducing illness, increasing social
said before, we're very interested in as holistic a solution as possible. So all of those perspectives will be incredibly important to us.
Yeah, hi, I'm James Gross from Barton Wilmore. For the judges, the panel presentations were set up as 3 provocations, and I'd just like to highlight 3 apparent contradictions. I'd like to sort of understand from the judges your response to that.
I think scale is pretty much sort of suggested, but that's for us to decide. But there have been scales from lecture quite small, 50,000 people, like 50,000 hosts, and up to Paul suggested 250,000, enormous variation there. The other issue was around green belts. Again, different views around the room, but there was a suggestion for certainly reforming the green belt. I wonder whether the judges consider that in the notion of popularity, that's something that would be reasonably considered and taken forward to the next stage. And the third point was, again, I suppose, the example that Angela provided, somewhat in contrast to what Simon said at the beginning, saying, look, if you're interested in sort of rejuvenating existing places, you're in the wrong room. But they provided the example of Freiburg, which is arguably the most sustainable city in Europe, and of course it's based around a historic German town. So I'm just interested in feedback from the judges on those points.
There's a whole day conference in just those questions. Firstly, I don't think anybody is arguing there's a zero-sum game and it's garden cities or urban renaissance or small sites. The reality is it's absolutely everything. But we are focusing on a specific part of that agenda about the idea of a total place approach. And I suppose that's the big difference. That's why I'm interested in. I run a business called Place for People for a very good reason. It's not called housing for people. It's called places for people because they have to have everything in that place that makes it attractive. So a big element is the notion of consumerism in places. God forbid that people should actually be attracted to a place. It might be something they choose to move to. So in order to address the issue about resistance to building in the Greenbelt, near the Greenbelt or wherever, we have to build up a big head of steam for people who want this thing. So a key part of the prize is who can come up with a clever way of creating something that people will really want to have in its broadest sense. You meant to comment on your question. You might start off with a village, it might turn into a town, and it might turn into a city, which is normally and throughout history how these things have worked. God forbid we should change that. So you might actually be able to construct something that started small and got bigger, or actually was a series of neighbourhoods that got together, which is probably the history of London. And those would be all very interesting notions. But the issue for me is about consumerism, attraction, how are we going to make places that really make a difference. I thought that idea about, look how 100 years ago people would say, God, they really know how to do it then, is a really good cipher for the prize in my view.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we've got at the moment. If you join me in thanking the judges for their time.